Are you tired of living in defeat when God has called you to victory? Today marks the end of your losing streak and the beginning of your winning season. What you're about to experience isn't just another prayer, it's a battle cry that will awaken the warrior within you and release the champion that God created you to be. The enemy has been lying to you, telling you that you're weak, defeated, and powerless. But today, those lies are shattered forever. You are more than a conqueror through Christ who loves you. Right now, as these words penetrate your heart, heaven's armies are mobilizing on your behalf. The same God who gave David victory over Goliath, Joshua victory over Jericho, and Gideon victory over the Midianites is preparing to give you victory over every obstacle, every enemy, and every impossibility in your life. This is your moment to rise up, stand tall, and declare that you will not be defeated. Share this message if you're ready to step into your season of supernatural victory. Consider the incredible story of Joshua, who inherited the massive responsibility of leading Israel into the promised land after Moses' death. Standing on the banks of the Jordan River, with the waters at flood stage and fortified cities waiting on the other side, Joshua faced what seemed like an impossible mission. But God's promise was clear and powerful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. When the priests carrying the ark stepped into the raging river, something miraculous happened. The waters stopped flowing, and the entire nation crossed over on dry ground. Comment: God makes a way, if you believe He can part the impossible waters in your life right now. The walls of Jericho seemed impenetrable, but God's battle plan was unlike anything the world had ever seen. For 6 days, the Israelites marched around the city in complete silence. On the 7th day, they marched 7 times, the priests blew their trumpets, the people shouted with all their might, and the massive walls came tumbling down. Victory came not through military strategy or superior weapons, but through obedience to God's unconventional instructions. Share: walls fall down, if you need God to demolish the barriers that have been blocking your breakthrough. Think about young David, tending his father's sheep in the fields of Bethlehem, when the prophet Samuel arrived with a horn of oil. God had rejected King Saul and was choosing a new king from among Jesse's sons. One by one, David's older brothers were presented to Samuel, tall, strong, impressive men who looked like kings. But God's voice was clear: do not look at his appearance or at his physical stature, because I have refused him. For the Lord does not see as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. When David was finally brought from the fields, still smelling of sheep and covered in dust, God said, "Arise, anoint him, for this is the one." Comment: God sees my heart, if you know He looks beyond your outward appearance to your inner devotion and potential. Years later, when the Philistine giant Goliath terrorized Israel's army for 40 days, it was this same shepherd boy who stepped forward with nothing but a sling and 5 smooth stones. While seasoned warriors cowered in their tents, David declared with unshakable confidence, "You come to me with a sword, with a spear, and with a javelin. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hand." With one stone, perfectly aimed by divine guidance, David felled the giant and cut off his head with Goliath's own sword. Share: one stone, one God, one victory, if you're facing giants that seem too big to defeat but you know God is bigger. Consider the story of Gideon, who was threshing wheat in a winepress, hiding from the Midianites who had oppressed Israel for 7 years. When the angel of the Lord appeared to him, the greeting was startling: "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Gideon looked around, perhaps wondering if the angel was speaking to someone else. Mighty warrior? He was the least in his family, from the weakest clan in Manasseh. But God saw not what Gideon was, but what he could become through divine empowerment. When God called him to deliver Israel, Gideon's army of 32,000 men was reduced to just 300. God's reason was profound: "The people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, 'My own hand has saved me.'" Comment: God gets the glory, if you understand that your victory must point to his power, not your own strength. With trumpets, empty jars, and torches, this tiny army surrounded the vast Midianite camp. At Gideon's signal, they blew their trumpets, broke their jars, held up their torches, and shouted, "The sword of the Lord and of Gideon." The enemy was thrown into supernatural confusion and turned their swords against each other. God's strategy was unconventional, but his victory was complete and undeniable. Share, God uses the unlikely, if you feel unqualified for what he's calling you to do but you're willing to trust his plan. Think about Queen Esther, an orphan Jewish girl who found herself in the palace of the most powerful king on earth at exactly the right time to save her people from genocide. When Haman's evil plot was revealed and a decree went out to destroy all Jews, Esther's cousin Mordecai challenged her with words that still echo through history, "Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?" Esther could have remained silent and safe in her palace, but instead she chose courage over comfort, purpose over protection. Her response revealed the heart of a true champion: "If I perish, I perish." Comment, for such a time as this, if you believe God has strategically positioned you for his purposes in this generation. Esther's courage to speak up at the crucial moment didn't just save her own life, it preserved an entire nation and the lineage through which the Messiah would come. God turned the tables completely. Haman, who had built gallows to hang Mordecai, was hanged on those very gallows himself. The Jews were not only saved from destruction but were given authority to defend themselves and defeat their enemies. What seemed like certain doom became a celebration of deliverance that is still remembered today. Share, God turns tables, if you've seen him reverse impossible situations in your favor. Consider the prophet Elijah, who stood alone against 450 prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel in one of the greatest showdowns in biblical history. The contest was simple but decisive: whichever God answered by fire would be proven true. The prophets of Baal cried out from morning until evening, cutting themselves and dancing frantically around their altar, but there was no voice, no answer, no fire. When it was Elijah's turn, he rebuilt the altar of the Lord, arranged the wood, placed the sacrifice upon it, and then did something that seemed to guarantee failure: he poured water over everything until it filled the trenches around the altar. Comment, God shows up when I step out, if you're ready to take a bold stand for him even when the odds seem impossible. When Elijah prayed a simple, powerful prayer, fire fell from heaven with such intensity that it consumed not only the sacrifice but the altar, the stones, the dust, and even the water in the trenches. All the people fell on their faces and cried with one voice, "The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God." Elijah's victory wasn't just personal, it turned an entire nation back to God and demonstrated his supreme power over all false gods. Share, fire falls when I pray, if you believe God still answers prayer with supernatural power and wants to use your faith to impact others. Think about Nehemiah, a cupbearer in a foreign palace who carried a burden for his homeland's restoration. When he heard that the walls of Jerusalem lay in ruins and the people were in great distress and reproach, Nehemiah wept, fasted, and prayed for days. Then he did something that required tremendous courage: he approached the king with his request. Not only did the king grant his petition, but he also provided timber, safe passage, and military protection. When Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem and surveyed the broken walls by night, he rallied the people with these inspiring words: "Come and let us build the wall of Jerusalem, that we may no longer be a reproach. The God of heaven himself will prosper us, therefore we his servants will arise and build." Comment, God will prosper us, if you're ready to rebuild what has been broken in your life, family, or community. Despite facing opposition from every direction, mockery, threats, and even armed attacks, the wall was completed in just 52 days. When their enemies heard about this incredible accomplishment, they realized that this work had been done with the help of God. Nehemiah's success came not through political maneuvering or superior resources, but through prayer, faith, and unwavering dependence on God. He proved that when God calls us to a work, he also provides everything needed to accomplish it against all odds. Share, 52 days to victory, if you believe God can accelerate your breakthrough and accomplish in days what would normally take years. Consider Daniel, the young Hebrew who was taken captive to Babylon but never compromised his faith or values. When King Nebuchadnezzar had a troubling dream that none of his wise men could interpret, Daniel sought God in prayer and received both the dream and its interpretation. His response to the king revealed the source of his wisdom: there is a God in heaven who reveals secrets. Throughout his long life, serving under multiple pagan rulers, Daniel remained faithful to God and consistently experienced his supernatural protection and favor. Comment: there is a God in heaven, if you want to acknowledge that your victories come from the Lord who reveals secrets and gives wisdom. When Daniel was thrown into the lion's den for refusing to stop praying to God, the Lord sent his angel to shut the lions' mouths. The next morning, King Darius found Daniel completely unharmed and immediately declared that everyone in his kingdom should fear and reverence the God of Daniel. Daniel's faithfulness in the small things had prepared him for this ultimate test, and his deliverance became a testimony that reached an entire empire. Share: God shuts lions' mouths, if you trust Him to protect you from every attack of the enemy as you stand for righteousness. As we conclude this powerful declaration of victory, remember that these aren't just inspiring stories from the past, they're prophetic pictures of what God wants to do in your life today. The same faith that gave Joshua victory over impossible odds, David triumph over giants, Gideon success with impossible strategies, Esther favor in crucial moments, Elijah power over opposition, Nehemiah breakthrough against obstacles, and Daniel protection in dangerous situations is available to you right now. God bless your day.